Friday morning on the Buckeye Breakdown podcast means only one thing. Time for our preview and prediction of this weekend's game. Of course, it's against the Youngstown State Penguins, which is not the most exciting game on the schedule, but we've got a fun show planned anyways. We're going to tell you why the Buckeyes obviously need to and will beat Youngstown State convincingly and maybe shift some of that attention away from the negative energy that's been permeating through national college football fans' hearts over the last week or so. It's all coming up next. We're going to have some fun on Buckeye Breakdown. We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. What's up, everybody? Happy Football Friday. It is Buckeye Breakdown, live 7 a.m. every weekday morning. We're glad to have you. I'm Brendan Gulick, along with Anthony Moeglin. You can find all the latest news and info on the Ohio State football team over at buckeyesnow.com. We're on the Fan Nation Network, part of the Sports Illustrated Media Group. Would love it if you subscribe to this channel so that you can support us that way. That would be awesome. We love doing these shows. We got a ton of coverage planned over the course of the weekend as well. But we get on the air for you every weekday morning to kind of get you started, and hopefully this can be one of your first stops and be a reliable place for you to have some Ohio State football talk. Anthony, the before we talk about this year's Buckeyes, I think the dominating headlines the last 2 days in football circles have been so green, which is why I'm wearing green this morning. Because Nick Bosa and Joe Burrow have made a lot of money.
A ton of money. Holy cow, that Joe Burrow contract is massive. A little bit of a surprise. The narrative this offseason was that he was going to take more of a team-friendly deal, but hey, I don't blame him. He got paid. And that's two former Buckeyes who are now the top paid guys in the NFL, and that's one arrow to have in the quiver that I know Coach Day probably told all the recruits. Probably sent a text out last night to all the recruits like, "Hey, you just see that? Come to Ohio State."
Joe Burrow, obviously the highest paid offensive player and highest paid per year salary, all time now, $55 million a year for 5 years, and I think it was like 219 is guaranteed. Nick Bosa, highest paid defensive player of all time. But beyond that, Joey Bosa is the highest paid outside linebacker. Denzel Ward, the highest paid cornerback. And Corey Linsley is the highest paid center of all time. And they're all Buckeyes. So I think that's kind of fun. Obviously, it's a pretty good time in this last 15 to 20 years to be an Ohio State fan, not just because the product in Columbus has been good, but so many of the best players for the Buckeyes have gone on to have a pretty impressive run so far in the NFL. And this factory just keeps on churning, man. Can't wait to see who the next guy is that might reset the market.
Yeah, but I think the conversation this week is like Ohio State's the worst program of all time. I don't know what that's all about. I thought we were throwing the program away and we're starting over from scratch. But no, I'm just messing around. That's it's impressive. It's impressive as heck. It doesn't, everyone talks about who's wide receiver you or DBU or defensive line you. Like I think Ohio State, when you look at the body of work, and obviously you just said it. You look at the dollars too. I mean, you go to Ohio State to get prepared to play in the NFL. And that's a pretty cool feather to have in the cap.
So when you're a program like Ohio State, you get a chance to schedule a couple of teams outside of conference play that should be good for your morale. And they're not always, both FCS programs. Sometimes in the SEC that happens, but Ohio State has one FCS team on their schedule and one non-Power 5 team on their schedule other than the big non-conference game against Notre Dame. And so they've got a game this week against a team that they should destroy, right? I don't think there are too many people that are worried about Ohio State and Youngstown State to the point where I actually haven't been able to find a betting line on the game. I don't know if there's a line. I mean, somebody's got to have one somewhere, but I haven't seen one on ESPN. I haven't seen one with our partners at SI Sportsbook. I don't know where you bet on the game.
No, it's one of those things, man, where it's like, they're so outmatched, and I haven't found a line either for this game. So it's inside the locker room. The guys, I'm hopeful, and it kind of seems that way from you've been down there pretty much all week with post practice interviews and things like that, press conferences, and it seems like the morale's pretty high, and that's a good thing. And I think that's why these games are really important because we've had the conversation all week, like, hey, we weren't winning the national title in week 1, and you're not supposed to win the national title in week 1. There's some stuff to improve on, and I'm hopeful they had a great week of practice, and I'm hopeful Coach Day is like, hey guys, like, and you can kind of hear it from the press conferences with the players, like they don't care what we're saying, what anybody's saying, tweeting, doing this, doing that. They're just ready to go and go show, kind of the country, like, hey, relax, take a deep breath, especially Buckeye Nation. Hey, we got to chill out, take a deep breath, and we're going to be fine this year. So I'm hopeful that the guys are going to come in tomorrow relaxed and ready to just play a clean football game and get in and out of Dodge with no injuries. We're going to hit on that in a little bit, and then look the part. And I'm excited to see what they have because, hey, at the end of the day, it's the end of the work week. We got football tomorrow, and it's another opportunity for them to show what Ohio State football is going to be this year.
So I am really interested to see how the beginning of this game plays out because, I mean, on paper, this should be the kind of game where you lead by 3 or 4 touchdowns at the end of the first quarter, right? You really should put the game away early. It should be a pretty easy, low stress kind of day as a fan. The coaching staff and the players won't treat it as a low stress day necessarily. They're going to go out and play hard and try to take advantage of every game rep they can get because they need it. But you're not worried going into this week. But what I'm interested is where's the line that Ryan Day draws between playing starters and playing depth? Because an awful lot of the time, the last couple of years in particular, I feel like Ryan Day plays his starters deeper into games than I would if I were in his shoes. I'm not paid $10 million a year or whatever it is to be a Division I college football coach, and Ryan Day has forgotten more football than I'll ever know. So I'm not going to sit here and second guess him. But if he is genuinely trying to build depth, and maybe even more importantly, because it's this early in the season, see what he's got. I want to know, like, where is that line? Because he has made such an emphasis this week, way more than I thought, on running the ball. And I understand that. I get it. I don't even blame him necessarily for it. But if you're going to run the ball the way he says that they're going to run it, they're going to chew some clock. And what if this game isn't 21-0 or 28-0 or whatever at the end of the first quarter? And what if you can't just yank your starters off the field because you don't have this big wide margin? The way last week we saw he probably wanted to play Devin Brown more and decided, no, I trust Kyle McCord more. And wouldn't you know it, Indiana's defensive line finally looks like a Power 5 defensive line for once. And we can't play depth quite yet. So I just want to know going into this game, and we'll find out tomorrow, but like, where is that line in the sand for him where he's like, look, I'm willing to take a bit of a chance that even my second team guys are going to still stretch this lead and we can take Marvin off the field way before we ordinarily would.
Right. And I think that, in my opinion, the first order of business is get the first team guys right. Like, make sure, we get in there and the operation looks smooth. Like, I think defensively, you're in really good shape. So I think that, the offense and defense are two separate conversations right now. So starting with offense, like, you're not going to sacrifice a Saturday opportunity, because they could be playing John Carroll and it would still be live action, live bullets. Right? They're the way better team than Youngstown State is, but it's still a real game where you're getting hit and Kyle McCord's live and, it's real action. So you're not going to sacrifice that experience to, especially with the team that, with our team who didn't look that great last week. So you won't sacrifice that just to build some depth. So on the offensive side, my guess is if it were me, I would be, hey, we're going to play the starters for the first half, and we're going to play it straight up. Like, we're going to play a normal game. We're going to be running it. We're going to be throwing it. We're going to approach this thing like it's a Big Ten game, and we're going to go and we're going to try to, put some points on the board and build some confidence, because that's like really, really big. Your offensive line needs to build some chemistry. That's been a buzzword of mine for the past week and a half. Like, they need to build their rapport, their chemistry. So you want them to have big reps. You want Marvin and Emeka to be out there to build some chemistry with Kyle. But it is, like you said, it's a fine line. You don't want Marvin to be running down the field and, get a freak injury. But at the end of the day, that's the sport we play, or that's the sport that they're playing, So it is certainly a fine line, but I bet, in my opinion, there's some goals on the offensive side. Like, hey, we want our starters to play the first half. And then, like you said yesterday, maybe come out in that first drive in the third quarter, play that like we would, like we're playing Notre Dame in 2 weeks, and then pull them all out and then start building some depth. So it'll be interesting to see how he'll approach that. That would be the way I would do it if I were him. And then on the defensive side, I think it's a totally different story. I think that you performed really, really well last week, and you're very confident in what the defense can bring to the table. So for them, it's, hey, let's get a couple drives, and maybe it's a different story. Hey, we want to start building some depth in the secondary. We certainly want to build depth at the linebacker position, because right now we got two guys in Steele and Tommy that we love and we know are going to be there, but we don't know what's behind them. And then at the defensive line, you can start playing some of those younger guys and give them some action once the game's a little bit more in hand. If they get out early, 21-0 in the first quarter, you'll start seeing those defensive guys kind of filter out. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I think you're probably right. We're getting a couple of questions on when do you think Devin's going to get in. The offensive line needs, time to play with Devin, and he needs to see some reps. I tend to agree, and I guess I also wonder, how much does Ryan Day want Devin Brown to play with the first team guys? Like, if he wants to see Devin the way he says he does, he's got to give him legitimate opportunities. He can't just put him in the game and call a bunch of handoffs. He's got to give him a chance to throw the ball. And Ryan Day doesn't never wants to embarrass anybody. And so it's like, where's the fine line between what if you follow what you said and what Ryan Day often does, and you play the starters the whole first half? And what if it's, I don't know, 28-3 at halftime, and you're winning. The game's probably not in question. Okay, do you bring the starters out for the first series of the second half, because that tends to happen a lot, before you then put your second string in? And if that's the case, are you willing to chuck it around with Devin Brown when maybe you're up 5 touchdowns? Do you want that perception? Do you even care? I mean, those are questions that I think are fair, because a lot of times in some of those blowout games the last 4 years, Justin Fields and CJ Stroud played the first drive of the second half. And I kind of expect Kyle to. Frankly, I want him to. If he's going to be your starter, or at least if you are leaning that way right now, and you're not willing to put a flag in the ground, I do think you need to play your starting quarterback into the beginning of the second half, so you can see if he can make whatever adjustments that you talk about in the locker room. That's part of playing that position.
I agree. And one thing I think we'll find out is the status of the competition, the quarterback situation. You'll know in the first quarter what the situation is. If Devin comes in the first quarter and is getting reps with the 1-0 line and getting reps with the 1 running backs and 1 receivers, like, you'll know that there's still some indecision. If he doesn't come out, you'll know that, hey, it's pretty much decided, and then he'll get some reps in the second half. So I think you'll learn a lot about that throughout the afternoon. But it's a fine line, and I do think too, to your other point, is that if you're in the second half and you're still throwing it around, I don't think that that's like a, I think that's what they will do, because you're trying to use this game to build chemistry. This isn't, hey, we're trying to run up the score just to run up the score, or we're trying to open it up just to open it up. I think that it's understood on both sides, like, hey, Ohio State's going to be working on some things. And it's not like a different.
Yeah, and Youngstown State, I don't know what the actual number is, but we're paying you $2 million or whatever to come here and be the sacrificial lamb. So
yeah, it's $2 million to come practice. Yeah. We're trying to get better at some stuff. They won't take offense to getting 50 burgered or 60 or whatever it is if Ohio State's still throwing it, because hey, they watched the tape last week. They know what Ohio State has to work on.
Yeah. I also look back at some other games like this, and obviously, the one that really jumps out to you, it's not a FCS opponent, but Ohio State's game against Tulsa was obviously a game that TreVeyon Henderson just went off. Mm-hmm. They also made it pretty clear this week that despite how well Chip Trayanum played, and Mayan scored a couple of touchdowns when they rotated him in, he made it pretty clear that TreVeyon Henderson, when fully healthy, is still running back number one, despite what Maurice Clarett wants to say on social. And I think Maurice Clarett might have an argument. But I kind of expect TreVeyon to have a good day. You look at where he, quote unquote, struggled last week. I think it was more a condemnation of the holes not being there because the offensive line didn't block very well, more than TreVeyon's inability to make something happen. He says he feels pretty darn good. And I got to be honest, I expect him to have at least one touchdown and a 100-yard day on the ground. I don't know if that's, if he's done by a certain time threshold. I think there's going to be a lot of Buckeyes that see touches on Saturday, 5 or 6 total, but I do think TreVeyon's going to have a big day. And I think some of that's because they're going to make running the football a priority. I'm choosing to take Day at his word, man. As much as I want to see Kyle and see Devin chuck it, I think the Buckeyes are going to run the football. And I don't necessarily love that because I know they can, but I just want to see what this offense is capable of. Yeah,
and I think that the story coming out of last week is that it's good to, in my opinion, it's good to have 3 horses in the backfield. Like, I think that the 3 guys that they can go to, I'm at least comfortable seeing any of them carry the rock. Like, I think Chip brings a certain level of physicality to when he runs, and I think Mayan brings a little bit of elusiveness as well as a little punch at the end. I think TreVeyon is a really, really good running back. And I think you have 3 great options in the backfield. So, I think that Trey will get the lion's share of the carries. But I think you're comfortable with anybody back there. But yeah, we'll see we'll know right away what the emphasis was all week in practice. You'll know on the first drive. If they come out and they're trying to really establish the run and challenge the offensive line to look like an Ohio State offensive line, you'll know that. Or you'll know if if the pass game was a huge point of correction this week, you'll know that as well, because they'll come out and start slinging it around. So, Coach Day's been harping on the run game, so we'll see. Maybe that's what they lean on early. But we'll all know, every Buckeye fan's going to know right away what kind of the emphasis of the day.
So speaking of the run game, we kind of alluded to it yesterday with some of the, in my opinion, lack of physicality blocking from receivers in the run game. Ryan Day had his radio show yesterday, and then he's available to the media on a Zoom call for about 10 minutes. And I had a chance to ask him about this. I want to share the clip with you, and then we'll break down what he said. Coach, wanted to ask you a little bit about receivers in the blocking game and just how you graded that out last week. Were you happy with the way your receivers blocked, since you've made such an emphasis on wanting to run the football more?
I thought there were some good things. I thought Julian Fleming had some really nice blocks. I thought he played physical. I thought there were some plays we could have done a better job in that area. So looking for more consistency there. But like you said, that's an important part of the game. We want to stretch the field vertically and horizontally. And part of that is the wide receivers blocking on the perimeter. Now, we have some big, strong receivers. And so you see a lot of teams, push the ball on the perimeter, however that is, whether it's in the run game or throwing the ball on perimeter, wide receiver screens, bubbles, things like that. But the key to making it all work, just like the run game, is blocking. So, you watch a lot of these teams get players touches on the perimeter in the wide receiver screen game. That works when you're blocking. And so, that's something that our guys have done in the past, but we'll continue to push them on, because the better we block on the perimeter, just like in the run game inside, it's just an extension of the run game. That's the way we look at it. And what that forces teams to do is get out of the box a little bit and defend the field horizontally. So whether we're doing that in the run game or shooting the ball out on wide receiver screens or bubbles or those types of things, we're going to need those guys to block at a high level. I think you saw some of that, but we're going to keep pushing them because our expectations are very high.
I almost thought it was almost as interesting what he didn't say or who he didn't mention than who he did there. I really appreciated Ryan's thoughtful, thorough answer. I mean, that was a nearly minute and 15-second answer to what I thought was a fairly straightforward question. And he made it clear he thought Julian Fleming blocked fairly well. He didn't mention Marv's name. He didn't mention Emeka's name. He didn't mention Cardell Tate's name. I thought there were some good moments from those guys blocking last Saturday, but I thought there were a few moments they looked a little disinterested in the second half when they weren't getting touches and when the offense was a little clunky. And I just hope it doesn't become a regular occurrence that, Marvin gets 2 catches on 8 targets and both those catches are in the first quarter. And then all of a sudden you see him or somebody else mentally check out. It's a small sample size, but if Ohio State wants to win a national championship, because they've got the skill position players, I think, to be in that conversation, those guys are going to have to take some pride in that part of the game. And this should be a weekend where they can get their feet underneath them and feel good about, blocking the defensive backs that they're going to be bigger than.
Yeah, the getting receivers to block is like the toughest challenge a coach has ever had in the sport of football, because those guys are the best. Like wide receiver, the wide receiver room is like the best room on the team. It's always like funny guy, like great dudes. They all love each other. They all want to score points and have their cool highlights. But one of the biggest challenges to get them to do is to kind of stick their nose in there and get them to contribute to the run game. So there's a lot of things you can do on the back end. I'm sure that there's a competition in that room. There's probably, a huge board on the wall or some kind of an incentive to get those guys to really stick their nose in there and make some plays happen, because, it is so important running or blocking from the perimeter. And why is it important? It's because, a receiver's block springs a 5-yard run into a 20-yard run, or a 20-yard run into a 60-yard run, or you've seen the clips where there's a 50-yard run, the running back's running down the field, and you got one of your boys running right there with you, leading you to the end zone, and it's not even a huge block. Sometimes it's just getting in the way. There's a lot of different techniques to do it, and I think that it is a challenge, and it's a challenge everywhere. You'll watch games on Sunday where a guy may not get some targets and he'll check out. That's just something that you just kind of have to work through and find different ways to incentivize your guys to kind of stick their nose in there. I know one of the stories I love, and something that, a lot of coaches implement, I think Kyle Shanahan's done this in the past, where they watch all of the inside run from practice and all of the run clips together as a team, and he singles out receivers who have done well, because it shows the offensive line that, hey, the offensive line sometimes don't love the receivers because they get all the shine and they dance in the end zone. But when it's shown to the team that, they're sticking their nose in there on the run, they're playing tough, and, Marvin Harrison sprinted across the field and got a guy 30 yards away to spring a touchdown. Those things are huge, and they build a lot of confidence not only in that room but across the entire offense. So I bet you'll see a little bit of an emphasis if it was something that they really preached about this week, is just, hey, get that extra guy. And it doesn't have to be the big shot where you clean somebody's clock and deplete them. It's just get in the way of one guy, and let's spring some balls or spring some runs deep. And even on those outside screens too, just get in the way and open up a lane.
I'm good with offensive linemen dancing in the end zone. I mean, that's
I wish they would do more.
let them dance. Let them do it. I anticipate that this is going to be a fun weekend. Before we get to a final score prediction to wrap the show, why don't we go to your keys to the game here?
Yeah, keys to the game for me, I think there's two sides of the ball. Like kind of we were talking about early. I think on offense, the number one key for me is it needs to look the part. This game has the opportunity. You're going to win the game, but don't win it like 35-3 and leave question marks about what's going on. Like, let's come out. Let's look the part. And what does that mean, right? I don't want to see any third and longs. Third and longs means you're behind the chains. I want to see positive on first down. Let's get either the first down on second down or get into third and manageable. Peyton Manning always used to say the best days of offense were first down, second down, first down. First down, second down, first down. So that means you're positive on first and you're moving the sticks on second. That allows you to open up the playbook and take some shots. So that's a number one thing. I don't want to see any third downs. I don't want to see any punts from at least when the offense is out there. And I know that's a lofty goal. That's one that's at the top. If you hit that, that's great, right? There's going to be some things that happen, maybe a penalty here or a penalty there. And that's one you really circle up top. Like, hey, if we don't punt the ball, that's a huge, huge win, and that's a very big success. So that'd be pretty awesome. And then in the pass game, let's have it look a little bit better. And I say a little bit better. We were so close last week. I think of two plays that really changed the game. I think that check down early to Travion Henderson, if that ball gets caught, that's a huge chunk play. I think of the curl route that he missed Marvin Harrison on because he tried to chuck one deep and force one. That's a huge chunk play, and that gets things going. Maybe looks a little bit better. We also found yesterday that shouldn't have been a penalty on the touchdown, which unfortunate. That kind of changed the conversation as well. But I want the passing game to look a little bit better, and I want the offense to look a lot more smooth, when they're out there operating with the football.
How about on the defensive side?
Yeah, defense, I think you just continue, the momentum you've built from last week. Last week was an awesome showing. Gave up 3 points, 150 yards total offense, less than 100 yards passing, and less than 100 yards on the ground. So I think that's a great start, and just continue to build on that. There really wasn't – we haven't said peep about the defense side this whole week because they look great. The secondary looked good. The defensive line looked good. I think the defense line could improve a little bit, maybe get a little bit more pressure without having to add blitzes and just use the front four guys to get pressure, but wasn't an area of concern. I thought your linebackers played great. So just continue that momentum that you built last week, and your goal every week is to pitch a cutout. Like, let's try to keep the Penguins off the board. There's no reason that they should score. I don't think personnel-wise they can even come close to matching up. So let's keep that blanked if possible. That'd be a goal of mine, if I was on the defensive side of the ball this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to see a little bit more whether or not this defense is actually a championship caliber defense. But to me, there was a pretty impressive opening statement. Maybe casual fans expected Ohio State's defense to squash Indiana because the Hoosiers don't have great football history and tradition. But I think if you're paying attention, the Buckeyes joked about it last week. Hey, it's week one. They don't know what they're going to come out in. I mean, it could be anything. It could run a triple option. And Jim Knowles said that sarcastically, thinking, well, there's no way they're going to run the triple option. And they didn't practice against it, but for 5 plays all week long in practice. And what did they come out and do? They ran the triple option. And look at the way the defense figured that out pretty quickly. There's some serious maturity and football IQ there. Where guys were picking up assignments, the scheme was taught quickly enough and well enough that they could execute it live in the moment during the game. I thought that was a nice response from an Ohio State team early in the year on defense that got tested to say, hey, what do you got? Can you pass a test you didn't study for? And I thought they did with flying colors. So I want to see more of that, and I expect that they're going to look good on Saturday. I'm not going to judge too much on whether Ohio State feels like a national championship caliber defense by the way they play against Youngstown State. But they need to look like they are capable. The expectation is that they're going to play really well. So, let's see a couple of takeaways. And I certainly don't want to see touchdowns on the board, My inclination is that it's not going to be a shutout. I think somewhere along the way they're going to give up. I don't know if it's going to be a touchdown or a field goal, but I'll lead right into my score prediction. I think it's going to be a 54-3 game on Saturday. I think there is a reasonable likelihood that somewhere along the way Youngstown State will squeak out 3 points.
Yeah, and pitching a shutout's very hard. It's hard to do, because you never know what's going to happen. So I agree with you. I think from my side of things, I'm thinking 49-7 is going to be my prediction. I think a late one, they squeeze one in late. But I think one thing that I will add is for the Buckeye fans, don't expect this to be perfect. Like, don't expect Kyle McCord, because I know you're all sitting there, you're going to be cross-armed like this, like he should have made that pass, he should have done this. He's not going to go 22 of 22 for 300 yards and 2 scores. There's going to be incompletions. There's still going to be work that needs to be done. It won't be perfect. So don't expect it to be perfect. Expect it to be better. Look for some certain things that we've talked about all week of areas of improvement. Make sure the ball's going in the right place. Make sure it's accurate. Those things are what you're looking for. And then in the run game, look for it to be physical, which I think it will be. But don't expect perfection, because I promise you, it's not going to happen. It won't happen. You'll be disappointed, and you'll be, everyone will be hand-wringing again next week. This team stinks, but I think they'll look better. I think they're going to make a ton of improvements in this week of practice, and I think it's going to look a lot more like Ohio State football on Saturday afternoon.
Just can't wait to get in one of my favorite cathedrals in the country. The Horseshoe in Columbus, man. That game day experience is unlike anywhere else in the nation, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The weather is supposed to be perfect. I mean, perfect. So if you're going to the game, try to just like actually enjoy the day. And, I know you're playing a team that probably doesn't have you all fired up, but like if this turns into a blowout, stay at the game and like keep it loud and have fun. I know that little PSA probably won't matter because people won't, but it's worth saying anyways. Yeah. It's going to be such a comfortable late summer, early fall day. I think it's going to be a ton of fun, and it should be a worry-free day as a fan. So have a good time and stick around, will you? That's what I have to say.
I love it. Yeah, it'll be good. And if you're not going to the game, use it as a great appetizer for sure. A great day of college football. There's a lot of great games.
That's the other good point, man. Texas, Alabama is not till later at night.
Yep.
Notre Dame's finally going to play a team that we think is competent. I don't know how good NC State is, but they're better than what Notre Dame's seen the last couple of weeks. So Let's see what the Irish can do as we continue to kind of scout them a little bit.
And you'll have a late night Wisconsin kickoff too. Well, not a late night, but later in the afternoon at Washington State. So use it as a really good appetizer. Get your Buckeye football in, and then use it for a great day, another great day of college football.
It's going to be awesome. We can't wait to be there. We'll bring you coverage all day long on Saturday, and certainly wrap up on Sunday to give you our What We Learned episode. Not expected to hear from Ryan Day or the team on anything today. Usually Friday is a dark day for the media. We'll be on site tomorrow morning by 8:30 down at the stadium. We'll do a pregame hit from the stadium, and be sure to share anything that's newsworthy with you, whether it's breaking news or what the game day atmosphere is like. Obviously, we're looking forward to watching the game, and then we'll have the post-game press conference with Coach Day, and ordinarily one coordinator and one player, probably quarterback, because that's how it's historically been. We'll have that streaming live post-game right here on our YouTube channel, and then we will add after the fact. They're going to have a bunch of players kind of filtered into the back of the press conference room. And we'll have a chance to talk with those guys and get some additional video. That won't be on the live stream, though. We'll have to upload that afterward. And then Anthony and I will do our post-game show and let you know what we thought in real time, with all the emotions that come with an immediate, hopefully convincing win over the Youngstown State Penguins. So for all the latest for Ohio State football, head over to BuckeyesNow.com. Please subscribe to the channel. If you were with us live, we had another good audience this morning. Thanks for being with us. And if you listen to us live, that's great. We'd encourage you to do that. But if you're listening after the fact, just know that you can join us live. Just hit the notification bell on our YouTube channel, and you'll know when we go live. But you can count on us every weekday morning starting at 7 a.m. All right. For Anthony Moeglin, I'm Brendan Gulick. Thanks for hanging out. And we'll look forward to seeing you down at the Shoe. Ohio State and Youngstown State. Buckeyes are finally back in the Shoe for the first time since a bad day last November. Let's see if Saturday can be any better here.